Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the April 25th meeting, and I'd recognize a motion to that effect.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Moving to the consent docket. Recognize a motion to approve it all
With the items.
based on individual involvement. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. We now have the concurrence docket. Recognize a motion to approve it with individual consideration involved.
With the items.
Been moved and seconded. We'll approve it, and it is approved. We have an item for individual consideration. The presentation of the fiscal year 2018 operating budget and the 5-year capital plan, and would turn it over to whomever is going to make the presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we start on the presentation itself, I'd like to talk with you all about some core business initiatives that we have identified and let you know that every component of the budget ties back to one or more of these initiatives. So first of all, customer service. We're a regional water provider. We're here to serve the public, whether it's an individual, business enterprise, another city, or a rural water district. So customer service is our first initiative. Secondly, safety. We are very aware of our safety record right now. We're not meeting our 2020 performance goal with an incident rate of 8. Right now we're above 10. It's our responsibility to provide a safe work environment for employees and the public. So we have a number of initiatives that we'll discuss in a few minutes in the budget to get the organization thinking about safety first. I think they're more focused on getting the job done, and we need to change that a bit and get them thinking more about safety. Water supply, as a regional water provider, it's critical that we continue to secure and transport long-term water supply to the city of Oklahoma City. With that water supply, we ensure economic prosperity and protect public health and safety. It's paramount to our being able to keep up with growing demands and our ability to maximize our resources. And to do that, long-term, we need to enhance water conservation measures and do everything we can to recycle treated wastewater to reduce the demand on our raw water and potable water supply. We're already doing that in a couple of places, but we're working on ways to do that more so that we can maximize our current water supply. System reliability and resiliency. Over the years, we've had incidents that caused our system to go down, and we are diligently working towards making our system more resilient, more reliable, so that we minimize the likelihood of system failures. So to do that, we need to create a couple of redundancies and upgrade our aging infrastructure. A couple of things to think about. We've been working on an interconnect between Draper and Hefner, so we want to continue that this year. And we need to develop and implement an asset management program. That asset management program will use condition assessment data to determine the actual remaining life of our assets rather than replace because they're old or replace because they've failed. We want to do a better job in evaluating to see exactly what we need to do. And then we also need to use the consequence of failure evaluation to help us prioritize. So if we know the probability of failure and we assign the consequence of failure, then we can work on those highest priority items first. Those two elements will help prioritize our capital program, and Sam will talk about that in a few minutes. Financial management. The primary goal of our financial management program is to maintain long-term bond rating of AAA stable. And as you all know, last October we were reaffirmed by both Standard & Poor's and Moody's as AAA stable. So we're on track there. A couple of the reasons why we received those ratings is because we have a balanced capital financing alternative program where we do a 60-40 ratio debt versus PAYGO. So that's a 5-year average. We're trying to maintain that 60-40 ratio. And we also use commercial paper to finance our capital programs and then convert that commercial paper to long-term debt as appropriate so that we don't go out and borrow a bunch of money and have it sitting there until we actually spend it. So that's a pretty good program. And then periodically we perform cost of service analyses to make sure that we have the proper coverage ratios and that we have a defendable rate for our citizens and our customers throughout, no matter what rate class they're in. And then finally, but certainly not least, is regulatory compliance. We're committed to full compliance with regulatory requirements. And as you know, there's a lot of different ways to comply with a regulatory requirement. So as the regulations evolve, we will present recommendations to you all for consideration based upon sound scientific and fiduciary practices. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Brett to talk about the operating budget, and then Sam will come up and talk about the capital budget.
Mr. Chairman and trustees, starting on the page about total sources, you'll notice that the primary source of funding, of course, is the water and sewer revenues for providing water and sewer service. Under other sources, we have $63.9 million. Of that, $58 million is use of cash reserves. The debt construction funds of $112.2 million, $90 million of that is water. Next slide. On uses, city operations, city utility operations, that's the funding that we will provide the City of Oklahoma City to fund the water and wastewater utility operations. The wastewater treatment plant operations and maintenance contract is the money that's used for the privatized operations and maintenance with Severn Trent. Trust operations includes the payment in lieu of taxes to the city, the lease fee, the Canton fee, Sardis fee, the letter of credit fee for commercial paper and professional services, legal fees. Non-ratepayer activities of almost $1 million, $900,000. Debt service of $44.6 million. And capital improvements of $254.7. The trust operations budget has only increased 0.6% in this budget. Next slide. We wanted to put a comparison over the last 10 years of the number of water customers, wastewater customers, miles of water main, sewer main changes, and employee changes. And you'll see, as with all city operations, the city grows at a faster rate than we add employees. And what that makes possible is for us to use innovation and such to enhance the service as we grow. However, per the ETC survey the city performed in 2016, it showed that customer satisfaction has decreased from 70% in 2013 to 58% in 2016. Therefore, our proposed budget includes technology for innovation enhancements and certain key position additions targeted to improve that customer satisfaction rating. Next slide. Under customer service, we're proposing to reorganize work groups. We're going to relocate the emergency call center to customer service. The customer service center, you've made specific investments over the years to enhance the call center capabilities of the call center, but the emergency center didn't benefit from those improvements. So after 15 calls will start falling off in emergency dispatch. And by putting them all together in the same center that you've recently expanded at 1 North Walker, they'll be able to benefit from those as we make other improvements. We're proposing to reassign the meter maintenance to line maintenance. A lot of the work they do is raising, lowering meter lids and leaks and service line work and activity. We can have line maintenance, how to handle that so that the customer folks can handle meter reading and things like that and handle that more efficiently. We're proposing to take the water, wastewater fleet operations that's currently performed by city staff and the solid waste management fleet operations that are privatized, and have them work under one division head and have the fleet be standardized so that we can minimize the number of pieces of equipment, right types of pieces of equipment, so that we can work towards improving one of the leading for results goals of increasing the utilization of our equipment and minimize the cost so that we minimize the impact on customers in their fees. Next slide. Private development staff. Currently, our leading for results measure is 64% on private development plan review. We want to improve that to 95% to meet our goal. In order to do that, we need to have additional staffing in our private development group. So we're proposing to add a position for that. At the same time, we are a little bit disjointed in the fact that people follow the paper through the city process and it's not interconnected. What we want to do is when people start pulling permits in the private development department, be able to have that information electronically passed to our private development folks so that when they're reviewing that, it's not new to them. It's part of the system. And then when they pass it on through, it goes to the GIS system and the utility billing system. So we're wanting to do a project of upgrading our work management programs using GIS Professional to have that integrated activity so that it also could mean that down the road we could get to the point where a customer on a 24/7 basis, if they get a new home, they could sign up for provisional service online 24/7 because we would already have that information, that infrastructure information available in our system. Today we don't have that. So we have to start brand new every time someone calls. Next slide. One of the things we looked to as a city was looking at its services. We decided we should partner more with other departments. So we have decided to partner, and you have approved an agreement to have the Parks Department do the landscape management for our facilities, and that will improve our ability to be more responsive to customer concerns in the areas of responsibility that we retain. So the personnel that are freed up from mowing will improve service to the public and the maintenance of our facilities. We're also proposing to add a position in the personnel department because filling positions faster and pursuing innovation initiatives are key to improving customer satisfaction. Next slide. As our general manager discussed, we've started efforts to improve our safety performance to get to the rate of 8. And in phase 1, in fall of 2016, we started the process of standardizing incident evaluation and training employees by our consultant that you employed to do that. In phase 2, we're finalizing the scope to focus effort on identifying changes to field work practices to reduce the potential risks that they encounter and look at all the tools and the approaches they're taking to further reduce the potential for injury. Next slide. One of the projects that Aquid approved was to improve the security of our SCADA systems as we work to manage and monitor the system performance for our water and wastewater system. We are moving to an enterprise application for SCADA, and we have installed that new enterprise SCADA application in the city's IT data centers. In order for them to maintain those new servers and the network security that goes along with that, they needed additional personnel. So we're proposing to fund 4 positions in the IT department to perform the server and network security activities they need to perform to support us in having a more secure, robust SCADA application. Once we implement the phases you've already approved in the water system, we will come back with another phase to work on the wastewater treatment facilities. Under the asset management program, we're proposing adding 1 civil engineer 3 to initiate the beginning activities of asset management, condition assessment work on the sewer system. Next slide. On sludge handling facilities, we have historically had lime and polymer that takes the dirt out of the water, basically, and it creates lime sludge wastewater or water sludge. And so that goes into pits and lagoons, and then we hire companies to extract the sludge, dry it, and haul it off. And over time, as the system grew, as the plants were upgraded, we got to a point where we are now producing too much water for the size of the lagoons that we have, and an engineering study was performed for each of those facilities, and it was determined the most efficient, effective way for us to go forward was to build facilities to dewater that sludge so that it could be handled more efficiently. And so those facilities are going to be coming online shortly, and we need supplies at Draper and chemicals, electricians funding at Hefner, and 2 operation maintenance techs at Hefner. Secondly, we have a need to do an improved job on locating when we have call-loci locates for our water wastewater system. By locating in all of those, we'll have less interruption of service. If somebody hits a line, they'll be less likely to do so if we've located all of our lines. And so we're proposing to add an engineering aid to help with sorting those and getting those to the field people so they can do their job more efficiently. Next slide. One of the initiatives we had last year was to go out and solicit a new contract for wastewater plant operations, enter a new contract with Severn Trent. As a part of that process, our consultant, CDM, worked with us to identify improved ways of monitoring and managing that contract so we would have better maintained facilities, better service. In order to do that, we need to have additional staff because we have 5 facilities and we have wastewater sludge applied throughout farmland throughout the metro area. The distances make it not possible for one person to travel everywhere and do a really good job that we want, and so we're proposing to add an additional person so we can split the responsibilities between 2 people and they can be on site more often. Another initiative is that we are now up to 1,760 restaurants that we monitor for fats, oils, and grease, and we have 2 people that are handling all the industrial waste and also these commercial activities. And we need someone that can focus just on the restaurants and the apartment complexes, the institutions, so that we can do a better job on that, because then we would end up with less stoppages, and they would understand the program better if we could interface with them more often. Third, we have been collecting our plant operating data manually, and we want to propose going to a cloud-based application for both the water and wastewater systems so we can have real-time access to that information, do plant comparison data with appropriate security by management, and in an automated way prepare our reports to DEQ on a monthly basis. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Samandi, our engineering manager for the capital plan.
Thank you. Trustees, the capital program for this 5-year period that's coming up between 2018 to 22 meets the initiatives that has already been talked about here. One of the biggest initiatives that we have for the next 5 years is the water supply initiative. And for that, what we're talking about is primarily building the second Atoka pipeline. Everything is in order to complete the design within this period, within the next year or so, and proceed with procurement of the pipe and the construction contracts for the second Atoka pipeline. Of course, along the way, we need to acquire some easements and some land for some of the facilities that we have, because we're expanding those facilities, building additional pump stations, a little bit more land to accomplish that stuff. And along with that stuff, we need to complete environmental permitting to actually construct these projects. So this particular project is about 60% of the total capital plan, a combined capital plan between wastewater and the water, but it's close to about 69% of the water capital by itself. So it's a huge part of our capital plan. The second part of the water supply is actually maintaining what we have, is the existing system that we have. So one of the biggest projects that we're pursuing is to upgrade the Atoka spillway. That's a really important project for us the picture that you see on the slide there shows you the existing spillway. So that's going to be modified to handle a lot more flows when you have a lot of rain without really damaging the facilities that we have there. The Atoka Pump Station, located just next to that little slide, is one of the most important facilities that we have. So this will provide a tremendous added protection for our facilities there. And then also in this water supply initiative, we're pursuing the acquisition of the permits, water right permits from bringing water from Kiamichi River Basin, which Sardis Lakes releases into. So that process has already begun by WORB, and hopefully that will be finished up by the end of the year, we hope. This particular slide shows you in general what our water supply system looks like. We have two sources of supply. One comes in from the northwest through the North Canadian River and serves Hefner Lake and then the Overholser Reservoir as well. And our southeastern raw water supply comes in from Atoka, McGee Creek, and then hopefully in the future from the Kiamichi River Basin. The Atoka pipeline is about 100 miles, and it's the biggest part of our capital plan. Next. In terms of meeting the system reliability and resiliency initiatives, we have a number of initiatives that we're pursuing. As everyone knows, we have the 72-inch, start with the first one. As everyone knows, the Draper Water Treatment Plant is the workhorse of our water system here in terms of delivering water to our customers. So some of the existing clear wells are a little bit old and close to the end of their useful life, and we also need to add additional clear well capacity to the plant. So the first project is to make sure that that happens within this capital plan. The next one that we're pursuing, that's a new one for us, developing and implementing a new asset management program. What that intends to do is that instead of going based on the events that happen, we're switching over to assessing all of our infrastructure and methodically go to a evaluation of what you have and how much life is left to it and what is the consequence of failure if any of those things happen. And based on that kind of a system, we will have a much better way of developing our capital plan and employing the right techniques for fixing these issues. And so we're starting that project in this year with the staffing that Brett talked about. And then also in this capital plan, heavily start the sewer side of this asset management program. We're also starting with condition assessment of all of those things, and then also making sure that the inventory of what we have is there. There's a lot of assets that are hidden and cannot be found, so we need to make sure they're all located and determine where they are. On the next initiative is a 72-inch. 72-inch is one of the most important pipelines we have that's coming out of Draper. We need to make sure that pipeline is really good because it provides a high degree of importance for us, and we need to make sure it's reliable and it's not having a whole lot of problems. So we're starting the assessment program on that stuff. Instead of spending a whole lot of time and money just replacing all of that stuff, we're going to actually assess the condition of the pipe, essentially one joint at a time to see what does it look like, or what is the best way to bring it up and rehab it, or even replace that particular joint of pipe. This will allow us to beef up the system and make sure that our delivery system out of Draper is sound, because that 72 provides water for a whole lot of Oklahoma City, north, west, east part of Oklahoma City. So that's a critical initiative that we want to complete. The next initiative is to make sure that the treatment facilities that we have, they're upgraded and they can meet all the requirements that they have to comply with. And then also make sure that all the booster stations are dealt with, because we have close to about 67 booster stations, booster station and lift stations altogether. So some of them are getting old. We have provisions in this proposed CIP to deal with those facilities. And on initiative on existing Atoka pipeline, we want to make sure the old tanks are replaced. And those are steel tanks, and they're old, and we're trying to replace those. And then also in line with keeping all of the collection system and distribution system in Oklahoma City. We are making sure that all of those old lines are replaced and rehabbed so that we can provide the right amount of service to everyone. In terms of resiliency, this is one of the most important things I think we have for us that we want to continue with, and that's the interconnect project. That's connecting the service areas of Hefner Water Treatment Plant and the Draper Water Treatment Plant so that we can serve either way, going from south to north and then from north to south. And it provides such a tremendous amount of resiliency for us even if we have a major failure at one of the treatment plants. This allows us to go serving those areas. We also have an initiative of completing transmission lines to make sure the water goes out to west part of Oklahoma City. And that's on the water side. On the wastewater side, we also want to make sure our system is really resilient, especially when we have a lot of rainfall. We want to make sure it doesn't overflow back into people's houses and it doesn't have illegal discharges. So what we're embarking on is to do a wet weather capacity analysis to see what is the best way to handle this. When the water gets to the plant, do you want to treat it with a special way or do you want to store it someplace? What is the best mechanism to do that? This will look at all the wastewater treatment plant and provide recommendations to proceed after that. And then also, along with making sure that we have enough capacity in our collection system on the wastewater side, we're also proposing to build a fuel relief line, especially down in the North Canadian Basin. The other initiative that we're pursuing is the regulatory compliance. This is high on our plate to make sure that we're meeting our goals here. Some of those wastewater relief line I just talked about in North Canadian and south of Oklahoma City is really tied into the consent order that we have with Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality. And we are required to meet those relief main projects. And then also, these are all tied in with the consent order. The treatment facilities. South Canadian is currently about close to about 5 million gallons a day average. Capacity, that stuff is about 6. We plan to expand it. But then also the treatment requirement has changed quite a bit. It's much more stringent than it used to be. And then because of that, we have to find another discharge point so that we can actually discharge the water or the sewage into the river after it's completely treated. Then also it's Chisholm Creek. We have issues with disinfection byproduct, so we have to modify the plant a little bit to accomplish that as well. This particular slide shows all of that stuff that I was just talking about. I'm going to start from the bottom up, from the bottom and go up. If you see at the very bottom of that thing, it's a blue line coming. That's the second Atoka pipeline coming into Draper. We hope that project will be completely built within this 5 years and completed a year or so after the construction is proceeding. So, and then you see the dash line, the dash red line out of Draper. That's the 72-inch that we're talking about. That is very critical for us. And the green lines that you see on that slide are the relief sewer lines that we were talking about. That's part of our consent order and regulatory compliance. And the blue lines that you see on that slide, the thick blue lines, are the interconnect projects. There's 2 sides to it, one to the west side and one to the east side. All of those projects are already under contract. We have engineers that are working on those projects. So in this capital plan, we'll deal with completion of all of those projects.
You mentioned under resiliency the ability to flex between south and north, southeast and northwest. Is that by physically connecting
That's
those
correct.
2 systems? Is that represented on this map?
That's correct. You see, if on the west side that you see, there's a green little squares that you see.
Right.
Those are the booster stations that connect both of those sides, and they pump from one side to the other.
Okay, so that's the raw water that we're moving.
It's not raw, it's treated water.
Treated, okay.
Yes, it's all treated water.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next one. So if you look at this slide, this is the total capital plan. The total is about $1.5 billion. And most of that stuff on the water side has to do with the water supply initiative for the Second Atoka pipeline. That's about half of it almost. So our plate is full, but everything is already in place to accomplish all of that stuff. That brings me to the end, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions?
I think it's incumbent to point out that we're probably, we're going to have to be doing a rate increase coming through, and we do a rate increase almost every year, and that's probably something that, it isn't probably, it's something that's going to be coming forth in the next few months.
As long as we do it in a timely fashion, we can minimize the impact on an annual basis on people and get where we need to be. It's delaying.
And overall, our rates are still pretty modest, but it's going to be some rate increases over the next few years.
Mr. Graves, our goal is to normalize those rate increases as much as we can. We have some really big projects, as Sam pointed out, but what we're trying to do, and what you all have done in the past, is approve rate increases so that we don't have really big ones and then nothing. So what we're doing right now is a cost service study, and we've instructed the consultant accordingly so that we can look out long-term to see how we can fund our projects with as balanced rate increase as possible.
Which is the appropriate way to handle that.
Yes, sir.
Smooth and steady, increments and rates is a much better way to go than people who like to brag they've gone 10 years without a rate increase and then you hammer people. That's never a good thing. So
Yes, sir.
I would agree.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. We need to vote on these two items.
Is there a motion?
I would like to have a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Next item is to enter into executive session. I presume that is the next item we ought to take on. Okay. I would recognize a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Let's move into executive session.
We have returned from executive session, and we are now at the point of items from trustees. Okay. Next is general manager reports.
I'm going to give you a quick version of the pro forma. We're on target for the revenues for both water and wastewater. Expenditures for water are down about 3.5%, primarily from power savings, pumping water from Atoka, and salary savings. And then for wastewater, it is 4.2% below target on spending because of salary savings.
Thank you. Citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we're adjourned.